I want to start out with a quote. I love the way that you think, and I'm curious what you'd have to say about this. The quote is from American writer Don DeLillo, and he says, "The writer is the person who stands outside society, independent of affiliation and independent of influence. Writers ought to stand and live in the margins and be more dangerous." Do you relate to this sort of thinking?
I grew up in an artistic family. Both my grandparents, my grandfathers, one was a painter, the other one was a film director. And I think there was a sense of, I would say, kind of anti-bourgeois attitude. At the same time, I'm working with movies, stories about people. And I think the only way to have a nuanced, specific relationship to my characters that I write is to live as well, you know, and not to be an outsider in the sense of living in a wood or being secluded, but rather to be in life and let it inspire me as well. But I'm interested in, is there such a thing as autonomy for artists today in a commercial medium like cinema? Are we allowed to think radically through our movies? My perspective on that, since you're bringing up DeLillo, is that it's through the formal elements of how we tell the story, how we get people involved in characters, what images we show is where we can hopefully bring some originality and to bring something specific and bring something philosophical, yet have characters that are real people. You know, that would be my ideal.
So you want to be more in the mainstream or not so much in the margins, although a lot of your films center on loneliness. Is the filmmaker's journey lonely?
Paradoxically, I don't find the filmmaker's journey lonely. I find it to be a great collaborative thing. This is why I guess, obviously also because I'm not that talented a writer, but why I haven't chosen to write novels. I love to be with people. I love to be with the actors, the team, to create something together. I even write with a co-writer called Eskil Vogt, who I've made 3 feature films with now. So yeah, no, I like that. I like the collaborative thing. Yet I think you are onto an interesting point, which is the fact that if art becomes just the expected and doesn't challenge the audience in any way or challenge our notions of things, it could become rather uninteresting.
Right. I understand that you had looked at several American scripts before co-writing Louder Than Bombs. What was it about the American stories that, I get it, but that didn't sort of resonate with you? Why?
I think it was less, so I read around a lot of scripts which were generously offered to me after I did my first film, Reprise, about 8 years ago. I think it's not the cultural thing. I love American cinema. I grew up watching American movies. I think it was more the fact that through that process I realized how personal I needed to be to want to spend 2-3 years of my life doing a feature film. You know, it can be a tough job sometimes, and you know, I'm very grateful I'm allowed to shoot films, but there needs to be some thematic structure, some themes, some characters that I really deeply care about. And it turns out I like to create those myself. I'm not saying I'll never do someone else's script, but I don't think it's a cultural thing. I actually grew up in Norway, where most people know how to speak English fairly well, and I grew up watching a lot of American movies. So I feel strangely at home in this culture. I don't know what the explanation is. Maybe it's Woody Allen or something. Everything I learned from life, I learned from Woody Allen.
I think you also mentioned that you loved The Breakfast Club, which I know for our generation is sort of this, turning point, John Hughes movies. For you now, what do you feel about television? Do you feel a lot of character and great writing has emigrated to television and has been left behind in film?
I watch TV shows. I think there's a lot of good stuff going on. I still feel that movies are vibrant and equally interesting as ever. So I think it's kind of the wrong thing to put it up against each other. I'm glad that we can have something like The Wire, which is remarkably original and insightful and beautiful, and could only work on that format of a TV show. At the same time, I'm glad to see cinema developing year by year and new stories being told there. So I'm kind of slightly tired of the dichotomy of TV and movies. We're being inspired by each other. And you see a lot of great filmmakers now do TV shows. I'm curious, yeah, we just spoke about Woody Allen. He's doing a TV show, they tell me. Great, I'll watch that. So, but I personally, I love the big screen. I shoot on 35. I'm interested in the idea of watching films together with other people. I love that personally.
Right. When you work with your DP, how do you formulate and think about where to place the lens in terms of creating that sense of loneliness, that sense of isolation? Are there certain ways that you feel the lens should be placed to convey that sense of bleakness? Because there's a lot of emotion and feeling where you can see it in the way that it's placed in terms of the isolation of the moment.
I think you're asking almost the most central question of all, which is, how do you look at something as a filmmaker? How do you look at people? Where do you place your camera? Why is there such a different emotion when someone's sitting up against a wall or up against a window? And all these things that are really hard to intellectualize about. And they're quite instinctive. It's almost like the musical or poetic, or if you want to use those words, way of making movies. It's how you shoot. The mise en scène, to use a pretentious French word that I love. So the idea of how to shoot is something that I think you develop and becomes very personal as a filmmaker. And I worked with Joachim Trier, a wonderful cinematographer that I actually went to film school with. So we worked for, 15 years together. And it's a hard question to answer why and how we do our thing. I think it's really, but it's an essential question. I hope that the answer lies in our movies.
Beautiful film. Thank you for making it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Great. What wonderful questions.
Oh, thank you.
Boom, slipped in. It just came out of nowhere.
Oh, okay, we'll start again.
Start over.
Okay, you got it.
It's great that I get that quote twice because Don DeLillo is such a smart man. So I think it was actually, sorry, I think guys, I was actually lucky.
Well, I figured
so the artist has no affiliation,
here,
stands
I'm
outside.
gonna start.
Start
can I
all
reset?
over.
Yeah, all right. So,
are we doing good?
Yeah, we're doing good.
Great.
okay, I'll slow down a little. I've had a lot
No,
of
no,
coffee
it's exciting.
and I'm nervous.
Please,
I'm excited.
yeah.
I'm very excited. Okay.
Great.
All right, so, okay.